Welcome back to another session of our PFRPA Spotlight. I'm loving this. And who we have today with us, folks, is really special because it's not often that we get to have another offensive tackle on this show.
You're the boss. You're the one who can make that happen.
I know. How about that? Well, they actually tell me what to do. I have to listen to all these guys. No, but offensive tackle, Hall of Famer, Ron Nix. Ron, thanks for hanging out with us for a few minutes.
No, my pleasure. Thank you.
We got some hot seat questions for you today. We're gonna have a little bit of fun with this. Let's see if we can drill down and find out who the real Ron Nix is.
Game.
It could be scary, but here we go. All right. So, in our careers, and you had an amazing career with the Chargers, LA Chargers, and San Diego Chargers back in the day. All of us have that kind of favorite football memory. I have one of mine is with Reggie White, where he came up to me after a game and kind of congratulated me and almost knighted me after the game. Said, "Kids, you're doing all right. You're going to be just fine, right?" What is your favorite football memory that people might not know about?
Well, it'll expose me as being shallow and self-centered.
Yes, most of us, right?
But I remember I played the first time I played against Deacon Jones. I had the worst game I ever had in my life, and then that off season, I told myself that's never going to happen again, and I gained 20 pounds and studied the film and thought I'd figured him out, and so we played him again the next season, and I really had figured him out, and in fact. I actually shut him out. He'll never admit it, but he's deceased now. He's a great guy.
Right.
And the following week, one of my former college teammates, Monty Clark, who was playing for Cleveland, had received the game film of our film with Deacon Jones, and he called me up and said, "Ron, that's the best I've ever seen anybody play against Deacon."
Right.
And that was really important to me. I know it was shallow. I wasn't thinking team or anything, but you know, you have a self-image, and up to the point of getting beaten by Deacon that first game, my self-image was really quite high. And then I thought, wow, maybe I'm not as hot as I thought.
Right. And I bet a lot of guys had their very worst game against Deacon Jones. You probably weren't alone.
He was a great player. I got to tell you a cute story. So after we retired, I somehow listened to a sports radio show, and Deacon was the guest. And the host asked Deacon, said, "What was the greatest player you ever played against?" And I'm thinking to myself, "Oh man, I hope he says me. I hope he says me." But he's so funny. He says, "I don't know, because they never put just one man on me. It was always at least two."
Right.
But that wasn't true, by the way.
Yeah. Right.
You know, as a tackle, you're out there all by yourself.
That's right. On the island, right?
Yes.
Right? Handling our business. All right. So, a few hot seat questions. I have a feeling this will be meaningful, seeing as you played in such a warm place like San Diego and LA. Coldest game you ever played in? Tell us about it.
Well, I think it was actually when I was at USC and we played Notre Dame. And I think it was like 5 or 10 degrees. But we would also have that repeated when we'd play Buffalo at the Buffalo Stadium.
Yeah.
And but I have to tell you, it was far more difficult playing in the heat than in the cold. You just did.
Totally agree.
In the super heat, my God, you just get exhausted after the first series of plays, and you're just going on courage the rest of the game.
Right. Well, coming from Michigan State, I remember when the draft came up, I was kind of in the back of my mind praying for northern teams to draft me, right? I was like thinking about going to Miami or Jacksonville or Houston that was really hot. I ended up going to Jacksonville, of course, right? So I know about the heat all too well. We all of us have a story about that one hit, right? Tell me about the hardest you've ever been hit.
Oh my gosh!
Was that an interception?
You know, I really can't. I can't distinguish it. I can say this as an absolute fact, even though we played better against some players than other players. every football game was just nasty and tough.
Yeah.
And everyone you played against was an outstanding athlete, and even if you dominated that person during the game, the physical exchanges between you and him were so hard. You did leave the games somewhat less than what you started it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
I got to tell you one cute story about Heat, though, man.
Yeah, tell me.
Do you remember the name Jack Kemp?
Of course.
Jack's. Of course, he was on the Bob Dole ticket. He was vice president when Bob Dole was running for president. And
Right.
Jack was a congressman for many years, and he was an outstanding player for Buffalo Bills as a quarterback for many years. But he started his career with the Los Angeles Chargers, and then we moved to San Diego. And Jack was just his whole life, right from the beginning, he was dominated by thinking about political things and thinking about the country and thinking about patriotism and thinking about social, economic issues. And we were roommates when I was with the Chargers. And we'd have discussions because we were at different ends of the spectrum. He was very conservative, Republican, and I was probably close to being a communist. But one of the things Jack told me, he wanted to see getting excised would be Social Security. He said, people just if there's no Social Security, the people will save money. They'll take care of themselves. And I said, Jack, that's just not true. I said, there has to be a cushion. I said, like you can imagine my mother, who was divorced from my father when I was 5. My brother was 6, and she was a first-generation Russian Jewish immigrant, and had only gone to the 5th grade. And her jobs were always the least possible. I remember she used to make 25 cents an hour as a waitress. And anyway, I said, Jack, do you really think that my mother would even put aside a dime as opposed to spending it on her children? So now we fast forward, and we're playing the Houston Oilers, and it's in San Diego, and there was a Santa Ana wind, and it was about 105 degrees. And the first half breaks, and we're just exhausted. It's a tough game. I'm playing against a very tough guy named Lloyd. Floyd. I forget his first name. And as we're walking towards the locker room, Jack calls out. He says, Ron, wait up. And I think he's going to ask me about what kind of play do you think I could run? Do you think we could run a quick toss? He says, I've been thinking about our conversation about what you said about Social Security.
Oh, my gosh.
And I think you're right. Yeah, I agree with you. We should keep it. I said, Jack, right? What are you doing?
Right?
We're in the middle of a game.
Right. That's amazing. That was pretty foreboding then of what his future was going to be, right?
Absolutely. He was a first-class decent guy. Decent guy. He was the one. He was the Republican that talked about expanding the tent, bringing in the big tent, and bringing in more people.
Right. All right, so next big question. We're going to talk about your transition from college ball, playing at SC, right?
Yes.
To the NFL. When did it dawn on you that you were now in the NFL? It was a different game.
Oh, I must tell you, you're going to be so disappointed in this answer, but when I played in college football at USC, you played the entire game. There was an offensive unit, defensive unit.
Right.
You played offense and defense and special teams. And at SC, they were just like every other major college. They kept the players on the practice field 2.5, 3 hours. Everything was full contact drills.
Right.
And then after the drills, you'd run sprints back and forth. You'd really leave totally exhausted. And then you'd go to meetings, and it would take up so much of your time. When I got to the pros, I thought, man, this is going to be the same thing. I'm just going to play a couple of years. The joy of the game has been sucked out. I'm just going to play 2 years. I want to buy a car and a house. But in the pros, you just play one way, just offensive. So I was an offensive tackle. I had so much energy. It was so much easier. It was just
Right.
refreshing.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! So my years, I was right on the cusp of all that change. Matter of fact, I remember when the time allotment for how long we were allowed to practice during a 24-hour period was reduced to 2 hours, and I thought that was heavenly,
Until the coaches started doing speed drills
That's right.
for the entire 2 hours.
It was George Perlis, especially at Michigan State. So George Perlis, who coached with the Steelers, Steel Curtain in those days, as a D coordinator. His big statement to us was always, "You're going to run until I get tired." Oh, well, meanwhile, he was in a golf cart, right? As we're running hundreds back and forth. So we'd be running well into the night sometimes. So looking back on your younger self, I want you to imagine the rookie Ron Mix. What piece of advice would you give yourself today?
You mean if I were a rookie again?
Rookie again. What would you tell yourself?
You know what? It'd be consistent with what I felt back then, what I still feel now, and that is you really have to be willing to try to give full value for whatever you're receiving. So if you're an employee and you're being paid, you should just do your absolute best to give the best performance possible. And in athletics, because your tools are your body, that means regulating your life both during the season and off the season to deliver your finest performance. And working out year round is something that I did. And I think that's extremely important. And I think then I'd take the advice and put it down and say, even for high school kids are given the honor to represent their school, and they should honor that by giving their full effort and by doing what's necessary to stay eligible. And one thing that they'll find out, I think, for high school students is not to be discouraged if you're not doing well right away. Yeah. A lot of people just develop later. You develop much later. Sure. I developed much later. I mean, as a high school player, I didn't become a starter until my senior year, and then only because I was an end then, only because the end that was ahead of me got injured. And we had there was only 6 teams in our league. At the end of the season, they choose an all-star team, and I made like honorable mention. Well, the cheerleaders made the honorable mention. I mean, right. it was no honor. It was like a participation certificate. Right. Here you're on. Here's a participation certificate. We're going to call it honorable mention. And but I loved the game, and my dream was to play at UCLA. So I had a plan. I decided I'm going to start working out right after the season ended. I'm going to start working out. I'm going to go to El Camino Junior College for 2 years, then transfer to UCLA and make both football teams. And what happened during that 6-month period after the season began and that next summer after my senior year, my development suddenly happened. And suddenly I was faster, stronger. Everything about it, the hard work really paid off. In that off season, for the first time, they had an all-star game between our league and another league. And all the really good ends at my position were juniors. So the coach of the all-star team of our league was stuck with me. But this is going to sound very immodest, but by that time, I had developed to the point I was really the best player in that all-star game. Right. And the only scout that happened to be there was from the University of Southern California. And I got a scholarship. I got a scholarship to USC. Honestly, I still can't believe it. I was just so blessed.
What a huge vote of confidence that'll be for any young man that listens to this, knowing that you didn't start until your senior year, and it was because somebody got hurt. Always being ready for that opportunity, I guess, right? Being prepared for the opportunity when it comes across.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to add something else to it, to go back to another theme of giving of yourself you try to give of yourself what is necessary to repay any generosity or given to you. I told myself when I got that scholarship, I've got to prove USC right, and I've got to I've got to work as hard as I can. And I told myself then, you're going to work out year-round, lift weights year-round. You're not going to have any alcohol. You're not going to have any sweets. Everything is going to be designed to make you the best player possible because you owe it to USC. And it worked out. It worked out. Yeah. And I followed that regimen, by the way. And you and I know I could have had a beer, I could have had candy, whatever, but every time I decided not to, it reminded me it was my goal. I owed USC something.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I mean, that's...
by the way, that
sage advice.
That worked out pretty good for my high school teammates. Now, this is the truth. There's just 11. You play both ways. And really, on that starting 11, I was really the worst player among the starting 11. And so my being successful in making All-American at SC and being All-Pro 9 times and then the Hall of Fame has worked out good for my high school teammates because now they go around saying, oh, yeah, I could have played pro ball. That goddamn Mix made it.
Right. It was way better than him.
Yeah, it was just the breaks, just the numbers I could have played.
That's right. We all get that one. So after all these years, your legendary career, making such a huge impact on the game itself, all these years later, now with the PFRPA and a board member, still making an impact on the game, what does it mean to you to be a part of the PFRPA?
Well, it's very important. I had gone to law school at night when I was playing professional football, and then the last maybe 15 years of my practice, I no longer practice law. My son now has the firm. But the last 15 years, we specialized in workers' compensation for retired professional athletes and probably had one of the largest practices in the United States in that area. And so got to see firsthand what has happened to so many professional athletes, and not just football players, hockey players, soccer players, baseball players. It's every athlete, because of the repetitive trauma to their body, leaves the game a semi-mess. Yep. And something we weren't really aware of at the time was the head injuries, the repetitive trauma to the head injuries, causing dementia, memory loss, inability to focus. And I was just, with our Professional Football Retired Players Association, our goal is to help these players. And I want to help them because the vast majority of athletes that I've met are really good guys, really good citizens, they're good family men, they contribute to the community, and they deserve to be helped.
Right. It's a unbelievably necessary and needed thing to have this real community for retired players, as we know all too well. So this was awesome. Thank you for taking the time to hang out with me a little bit and have some fun answering these questions and giving folks a chance to learn more about the legend himself. So thanks, Ron. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it. Appreciate the good work you do, too.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.